Hey there, welcome. Good morning and good afternoon, regardless of when it is that you're watching this. Coach Pipe's coming at you live, excited and full of energy. From 6 agents to 220 agents recruited. More importantly, from 143 transactions in 2015 to 3,500 sales made in 2021, has functioned in 4 different facets of the organization that he is now retired from at this point.
Right.
Justin Baker, so glad to have you here, man. Welcome to, our opportunity for the world to get to know you and to be able to actually get to see the background history, and for all of us to learn from the experience and the time and the energy that you've actually put in the business. So brother, welcome on board. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me, man. It's always great to talk to Pipes.
Yeah, dude. And I gotta tell you, we've known each other for a while, and I am absolutely intrigued because, I always knew you were like a badass. However,
Yeah.
like when I went through this and what you and Lawton had done and your role and everything along those lines, it was astounding to me, and just a testament to, if you have the right mindset, if you know how to strategically approach a situation, you can pretty much do anything that you want in an organization. And you've done 4 things. You were recruiter. We'll talk about this. You recruited, and we're headed up growth. Then you switched over and headed up like the training for the agents for the listing side of the business. Then you went into the agent or to the acquisition and the wholesale component of your guys' organization. And then ultimately finish off with launching Title. I mean, dude, is there anything you haven't done in the organization?
Well, I appreciate that. I think that was one of my, specialties, is that I had done a lot, so I could really fit into multiple roles. So either that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I never felt like I had one seat on the bus. So I was always going in different directions, and then also having to hone in on some different skills. Recruiting and expansion was entirely different than project managing a title company startup, which we started a title company. It wasn't a joint venture. We actually started a new title company. So, with all of those different hats that I wore, the skill sets and the just the mental fortitude that you have to have, and you need to adjust. It's kind of like going through the playoffs, whether it's the Stanley Cups or the NBA. If you watch those, each game, how much the team has to adjust and who comes out better the next time around. I always felt like, that was what I was doing. Plus just adding different tools in my tool belt, whether it was coaching prior with the previous company, learning how to coach properly, learning how to recruit properly, learning how to create dominant scripts for the listing side of things, working with contractors and acquisitions and other people to bring us acquisitions and sales agents on that side of things. So yeah, it was just a lot of different things over the course of 6 years. And then lucky enough was able to be, bought out last year.
Yeah, which is awesome. And now you're retired and sailing off to the sunset, or you're...
I wish. I just can't sit still because I love coaching. I've always enjoyed coaching. I was good at recruiting and did a lot of recruiting. I mean, my career dates back 21 years ago. I was actually a team leader and part owner of a Keller Williams office at the age of 28, where that's when I decided, or kind of recognized, that I loved coaching and recruiting. And then I figured out I didn't like the recruiting as much, but I did if I recruited them and saw their growth. Right. And that was recruiting to me. And I got actually put into recruiting. I forgot that part of it. Towards the end, I was just the recruiter for the Lawton team. And I realized that wasn't really the end game for me, because I like to coach, mentor, and work with agents and train agents to be better, and be able to see that opportunity blossom within an individual is really that's just what I love.
Brilliant. So you were partnered with George Lawton, right? For
right.
Those people that don't know George, that have been under a rock someplace, if they're in real estate. George, you guys were based in, he's still based, but you guys were based in your partner in Phoenix. Is that right?
Right. Peoria was our main location, kind of the Northeast Valley. So yeah, we were in that area, and then we expanded out into the 6 locations and ended up at 220 agents when we were at our peak.
Cool. So you come in 2015, I believe it is, right?
Right. Yep.
You were tasked with what? Now, you were team lead, like you were Keller Williams team lead prior to that,
Mhm.
were you selling or did
I
you
ran
take?
my own team. Yeah. I mean, through the downturn, did a lot of the REOs and short sales and that sort of thing. And then I was kind of really trying to figure out where I wanted to be because that was obviously teetering off. I was on my own. Always enjoyed teams. I love being around other individuals and learning from them. I was a team sports player. So I was point guard in high school and, a very good one to be at that, but I blew my knee out in senior year. But anyways,
I had no idea. I've known you for
yeah,
like almost a decade and I had no idea, brother,
yeah.
that you were a point guard.
So
Really
I'm
cool.
from Indiana, and so I grew up with the basketball, right? And
I see it in the
but I,
back right behind you as well,
yeah,
too.
that's Chris
So
Paul signed
nice.
basketball. Yeah. So I always knew that a point guard is going to be a center, right? So it's the same thing in real estate. It's a team sport, and having George as a partner, and then bringing in a director of operations and transaction coordinators and marketing and office manager, everything that we had. It really is a team sport. You're not going to be the best at everything, and that's I think one of the key attributes to know about yourself is what you're good at, right? And bringing it back to the disc profile, who you are and understanding your personality, what you're good at, and then also bringing in, where your weaknesses are, as well as you working on your weaknesses. But, not everybody's going to be a good transaction coordinator. Obviously, if you're in sales, that's not going to be your cup of tea. So hiring to that and, putting together the team. So I was missing out on that. And George and I decided to team up, and I was basically in charge of recruiting and some sales training at that time. And then we really took off when we saw the opportunity coming our way with Zillow offers in 2018.
So you're 2015, you come on board, right? And you guys have 6 agents, I believe it was,
Yeah, we
right?
had about 6 agents and one transaction coordinator and one admin staff.
Doing 143 transactions, which
And they did 143 in 2014 before I came on, and then 2015 we ended up with 356, I believe, transactions that year.
so you're number one of you coming on. You guys more than double what it is that you do. Okay.
Yeah,
And then it continues to grow from there.
right.
Tell us about that because I know a lot of the people that are watching this are probably thinking, man, yeah, I'm at 50. I'd love to go to 100. I'm at 25. I'd love to go to 50. I'm at 500. I'd love to go to 1,000. I know a lot of people that I coach, like,
Sure.
back in the day, that was their thought. Or I'm at 1,000. What do I do to go to 2,000?
Yeah.
What was it that you came in? What was it that the moves that you and George made that you see
Sure.
looking back, you go, okay, this is something that everyone should do who's looking for sustainable and immediate type of growth?
I was always growth and expansion, and that's what that's another drive in me is always be recruiting, right? Always be looking out for opportunities because you never know who you're missing when you're out recruiting, right? If you don't have that ad out, if you don't have some sort of Facebook, something going on attracting talent, you're missing out on talent, right? So really it was going to and finding the exact person with the culture and avatar that we were looking for. And through recruiting and interviews and hiring, then that's really the key to our growth that year. And we also started that year an ISA department, which helped with some of the lead culture and generation for our agents.
Okay. I
I
think there's a
forgot
lot of
about
people.
that. I ran the ISA department too. And
Okay.
started
So there's
that.
actually 5 things that you
Yeah,
did, right?
I forgot. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk recruiting for a second. Okay. I haven't recruited or I've done it and it's been like my aunt or my cousin or my sister that I brought on board.
Yeah.
What would be like if, the 2 or 3 for fundamental steps that anyone that's looking to actually grow agent count? What would you tell them? Do these 4 things if you were coaching them?
Sure. The first thing I like to work on is knowing and understanding your culture, right? Who are you and who do you want to be as an organization? Because then that defines the foundation of who you want to attract, right? And if you don't know that, you really don't know who you want to attract. But when you're sitting across from somebody and you have your avatar dialed in on the culture and production that you want, then it makes it much easier to then say yes to them and bring them on board, right? So that's first and foremost. Secondarily, is if you have the opportunity to hire somebody that's good, like a team leader, which is what we ended up doing as well, who was a very good recruiter and team leader. So they trained and recruited. That was a key decision for us that really helped us expand. And we did that, I think that was 2017, 2018. But if you're doing it on your own, right, is then just looking at who is it that I'm going to attract with the culture and the avatar and the productivity, and then what lanes or what avenues am I going to use to attract the agents. And there's multiple ways in which you can attract agents, whether it's job boards, agent lists. There's some outsourcing that you can do, school lists.
What were the
workshops?
What were your guys' go-to shots? You know how, like, we'll talk basketball since
You
you're
know,
a point guard, man. Michael Jordan's fadeaway jump shot on the baseline, which was his go-to shot for so long at the end of his career. Man. What you know that one I'm talking about, like just that fadeaway jump shot. Yeah,
yep.
Exactly.
So
what was your guys'
go-to back in the day was Craigslist. Now that I just realized it the other day because I was going through. I have a Google Doc with all of the recruiting events and things that you can do, and it even said Craigslist to this day, and that was where we had started in 2015 was Craigslist.
Wow.
Yeah. Then we switched over to more of the Indeed ads, and Indeed was working fairly well, especially the fact that we could recruit in multiple locations. So it wasn't necessarily saturated because Phoenix is fairly large with different cities. So then I would run ads in different cities and work on the performance to see which ones were bringing in the best candidates and which ones I may be spending too much money on and not getting the results. So, A/B testing as well. It's similar to copywriting that Shep Black talks about, right? Having your subject line basically is your title in Indeed, and that works. And if you're not attracting enough, you might want to look at what your title is. And I've had agents do that, and I review it with them on our coaching session. I'm like, whoa, no, It's not just we need real estate agents, right?
We have more leads than we know what to do with. Like, right. Oh my gosh, like who are we attracting at that point? You know what I mean?
And we were lucky enough to have the ad that worked the best for us was the number one team in the state of Arizona looking for 2 qualified agents or something like that, right? So we also we posted who we were, but also the opportunity was only for a couple agents, even though we might be hiring. Yeah, it's limited. Right. The limited time offer.
Yeah. Even though we may be hiring 10, we're going to say, hey, we're only looking for 2. Right.
Right. So, yeah. But if 10 good come in, of course you tell them,
hire 10.
Why would we not hire them?
Yeah,
right?
Totally. Yeah. So and I love what you said, which was know your culture, then build your avatar as the person that would fit that culture. I think a lot of times people just go, who's my avatar, without really thinking, well, our culture. Who's the right fit for that, right?
Yeah.
And number 2 is have a multi-pronged marketing approach, whether it be ND. What's your thought on WiseHire, man? I
haven't had a lot of experience with WiseHire, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've got people who it's basically Indeed for real estate, right? And
Yep.
So I'm sure you heard of it. And so some places it works great. Some places I'd love to hear from the viewers as you're watching, like your experience.
What's working?
What's working out there? What's working for you? Okay, so now you got they're coming in, etc. I got some questions on recruiting. How long would it take to nurture that recruit to be able to get them on board, right? Mm-hmm. And what percent that came in for an interview would you guys move forward with, and would you not? Like, what are the metrics? And I know that you're a data-driven dude, right? So what were some of the metrics that people would have the right expectation?
One of the biggest things that we tracked was the cost to acquisition, the cost to hire and acquire an agent. And you have to be okay with spending money to get a good quality agent, because if you run the numbers and you know and understand how much money that agent can make you, then you understand why you need to spend money to make money. And one of the key things that we were looking at was it was almost $1,500 per agent that we were bringing in at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, through all of our sources, right?
Was that like marketing, or was it like what
marketing mainly? Yeah, marketing, all of the channels in which we were advertising in. Breaking it down and into that cost per hire was really important for us to know. It did come down a little bit, but we were also in a very competitive market with Zillow Flex. And Zillow Flex, all the teams here are recruiting in the Phoenix market extremely heavily to bring in the top quality agents to be able to close those leads. Plus, now you're running into not just EXP, Keller Williams, agents, brokers, teams recruiting. It's a competitive environment out there.
Because you guys had Brandon Howe, you had Corinne Nguyen, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Jason Mitchell, up a little bit higher. You had Jeff Highland, maybe. I think I'm not sure if Jeff had it up in Prescott or not. So, but that's not your market. That's a little bit further away. But
so Becky Garcia.
Becky, for sure. So you guys had, these are iconic names running very successful teams that you guys were competing against.
Yeah.
How did you get someone to choose you guys over Becky, Corinne, Brandon, all the rest of them, man?
Yeah, I think it was our culture, right? So when I went through a recruiting interview with them, I made sure we touched on our values and our culture and what we provided. We also tried to over provide on anything that we did in our training. Our training was really top notch. We ended up hiring a previous high school educator that ran our training department. So everything was really well laid out in videos and live. So when they were able to do that, and it's also inviting them in to see what you have, right? So you invite them to the team meeting and they see what that culture is like, even though it was on Zoom when we were leaving, or when I was leaving the industry with George, but they still got to see how it worked, what we went through and what we covered and what was important to our team. And they got to see a little bit of some training in that. And then we also invited them to the training that we'd have weekly. So that was really, once they see it, get it, and understand it, then they're attracted to it.
Love it. Show them, don't just tell them, right? I think our buddy Anthony Lamacchia says that you got to show them, and you got to tell them as well.
Yeah.
Too. Okay.
I would say telling's not selling.
Telling is not selling. That's right. Okay. And they got to have the experience of the culture. Okay. So we've got number one, back out who your avatar is based upon your culture. What is it your culture like demands? Number two, multi-pronged marketing effort and be willing to actually spend money on it. Number three, when recruiting, hey, realize there's a cost basis. So bring the right people in, and also, show them, like, let them experience for like what you guys did. What was the biggest mistake you guys made in that growth trajectory? Because you guys went from what? You guys went from 143 to 300 something transactions, then 300 to what like the next year?
So we grew a little slow. I mean, we would grow by 100 to 200, it's not really slow, but 100 to 200 transactions a year until we hit the 2018 mark with Zillow offers. And then we really started to compound. And then 2019 was the best year with the Zillow offers and everything really clicking. Mistakes is going into a market that you're not in, thinking it'll be like your market, right? And without having a good team leader that has recruited, trained, and mentored agents, and hopefully they already have some sort of a base of a team, right? So that was the hardest thing to do, was going into other markets, because what I found, we led with team leaders, right? To find a good leader in that local market that could recruit, train, coach, run team meetings, that sort of thing. Well, what we found was that most of the time, these individuals really are good or want to coach and train. None of them have recruiting experience. So that was the biggest differentiating factor, that if you could find a team leader that was good, and if you found a team leader that was good recruiter, sometimes they were like a headhunter and they were selling snake oil, and they would get people to join, but as soon as they left, people left with them, right? So they would,
it's like the Pied Piper. They'd follow, all the rats would follow, not rats. So
we experienced that as well. We hired somebody that ended up recruiting really well, left, and then we had issues when they left. So hiring the good, great, awesome team leader, and that person is going to set you up for success there.
And so I'll translate that down also into, or not down, but over into, you're an individual agent, right? If you're an individual agent, you're growing your team. Really what Justin's talking about is, it was poor leadership, right? And lack of market knowledge. That were the two biggest mistakes. Lack of market knowledge for them was expansion, right? Expanding into markets that we didn't have a huge knowledge of. And then what the failure that took place was because of poor leadership. Now that can be you with your 2 or 3 agents as well too, right? If you don't have that market knowledge, or you're not actually engaging in the leadership, your LQ, I call it your leadership quotient. So awesome. Yeah. So let's pivot a little bit. So you get this up, you get this operational. I mean, you could have just freaking, mailed it in and kept going in that role, but you don't, right? Come in, replace yourself, move out of that role, right? And then go into, why did you step out of that role, man?
So I think it was the need to develop different departments within, the opportunities that we had, right? So because of Zillow Offers, we had a lot of opportunities outside of the Zillow Offers because not everybody was going with that product. So what are we doing with these other people, right? So we really had to focus in on the sales side, listing side of things, because when they didn't want to go with Zillow, we still had them, and Zillow had them as an opportunity. So how do we capitalize on that opportunity? So then it was, let's really focus in on our listing department, on our sales department. So that's what I did for the next 6 to 9 months, was really focus in on that process. What happens on a listing presentation, and these individuals that are fairly new to listings, right? So how do they go upon that first accepted appointment that our ISA inside sales department sets, to then going on the appointment and selling it, and then what do we do after the fact when we have the listing, and that sort of thing. So dialing in, what we really were introduced to with Zillow were a lot of the words that corporations use, and one of those is an SOP, or a standard operating procedure, and really focusing in on the exact steps that you take throughout the process of a listing.
It's interesting, and we were talking about this prior to jumping on as well too. It takes a certain person to be able to inject themselves into 5 different roles in an organization and do all of them successfully, and do all of them successfully to a manner that you can step out and someone else can plug in and be able to follow the system. And I think that's, if I look at Justin Baker's superpower, it is systems, operations, procedures, whether it's sales or operations side, done in a manner where anyone can plug in and use them, right? Succeed, basically.
Yeah. So. And that was exactly the ultimate goal was, who can plug in, and when they plug in, can they hit the ground running? Absolutely.
So let's go listings, dude. Okay. The world has changed. It used to be, here we are, it's 2022. Right. And there may be some people in the future that watch this and, in 2023, 2024, who knows, but it's 2022 right now. Market has definitely shifted past tense and continuing to make adjustments. It used to be that I list a property, I don't need to worry about the price. I can list it 10% above ask price. The market was so robust, it would still sell 5-10% above that list price because, we're selling 20% above asking price.
Right.
Different now, right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah,
with your people that you coach right now, okay, how are you making that adjustment with them? And how would you, if you were still overseeing the Lawton Group, right? What would you be saying to your agents right now for them from a listing standpoint of what they need to be doing?
Sure. Well, the biggest key is the sellers need you now more than they did, right? If you're a seller and you're looking back, you're like, oh yeah, the agent put it on the market and it sold. They didn't do anything. Well, now we actually have to have the right skill set, knowledge, and attitude to be able to sell the listing over a period of time versus hours, right? And you either get one side or the other with listings. Agents that go, oh, I don't want listings right now because I want buyers. I knew this was going to come up with my conversations with agents. That's what one of them actually said, and I was already prepared for it. Where the other one, they're seeing it as opportunities, because stepping away from the Lawton team, I got into coaching again really in January, February. Well, actually, I really didn't take on clients until the end of February, maybe March. And so we were really working on lead generation and where do they need to be. And we analyze their numbers and look at where they want to grow, and can they grow at that amount with the leads that are coming in. More than likely, and it was no, we need more leads. And one of those focuses was, where are your seller leads? So I was already having them focus on seller leads, and then the market shifts and some of them are going, well, wait, I just want buyers now. And I'm like, no. He who controls the listings control the market, really, right? And now it gives you opportunities to build upon each listing to attract buyers, leads, more listings in the neighborhood, your farming, your open houses, your social media. Everything that we used to do, right? I remember going, if you have a listing, we should at least get 5 leads off of the listing. And here's why.
But there was no chance in the market we were in because it was gone the next day.
Now you can leverage the listings. Leverage the listings for your advantage and show the sellers what type of knowledge and skill sets you have in selling a property.
Yeah. and show the other potential sellers in the neighborhood, here's how we do open houses differently, right?
Yep.
Here's what we do as
Absolutely.
aggressive. We're going to go out, we're going to knock on doors, we're going to invite neighbors, we're going to do all of this.
Yeah.
You now have an opportunity, and I've always said this, and I agree with you. The more challenging and problematic market, like what we're in, which is normal, right? We actually need to work in market and do
Normal.
stuff to actually sell homes. It's normal. This is just normal, right? They show the difference between great and mediocre in the agent population, right?
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Like right now, we're really seeing that. So, okay. So number
Which,
one,
real quick, brings you back to recruiting, because agents need a team leader and a good leader to lead them through this change and the
Oh, yeah.
shift. So
Totally.
even attracting agents can be not easier, but it can be more beneficial for you and the agent, because agents are going to be looking for more of that leadership of what do I do now?
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. What's the training? What's the strategy? Where, you know, and like any harbor, or, you know, any harbor in a storm is what a lot of people are looking for right now. Is
Right.
where am I going to go? Maybe I don't have this all figured out. We've seen that with this, the uptick of people that have made inquiries in terms of coaching in the
Yeah.
organization as well too, where people are just like, okay, I thought I had figured out, but could you guys give us some help? Can you index on this? Can you help us with some strategies, et cetera? Okay. So number one, you said, we're going to, you tell your team, stay excited about listings, because now is really when listings are really valuable, because one listing could generate 4 or 5 other leads that are buyer leads or potential seller leads as well too.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. What would number 2 be? What would your second bit of advice be?
Well, I think like what you just kind of talked about earlier was pricing the property correctly. You can't just price it above 15, 20% and it's going to sell right now. Now you really have to know where the sales are and what's been going on, market activity, what do you call it? Sales, how fast they're selling,
Yep.
right? And really analyzing that local market and understanding the macro picture for Phoenix. I mean, the macro environment tells us what's going on, and then as well as the actual really micro neighborhood sales. So here we have what's called the Cromford report. So staying on top of the economic data and the sales, and you know, he has a market index, Cromford market index, which kind of predicts that. So making sure that you're staying, you know, on top of everything that's going on in the market is key. And then making sure that you understand and know how to do your comps properly, so you can price the property competitively, right? Because we don't want to overprice it and not get any showings, and we don't want to necessarily always underprice it, but we want to try to be where the market is. And right now it's a normal market, you know, so it's a whole new shift in mentality and understanding that, you know, how competitively I price the property is going to really have an effect on my seller and my business.
Yeah. You know, I hear you saying is it's a game of education at this point,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Like what I heard was educate, and hey, know your macro, know your micro neighborhood, know the micro, which is the 3 or 4 comps that you're going to be using as well too. Because we didn't really, I mean, I think about it, we didn't really need comps that much. You know what I mean? Where would you like to price your home?
Or you just looked like at the last one that sold. Like, okay, 20,000 higher. But you know, the word I was thinking was absorption rate, right? What is your absorption rate?
Yeah, totally. I could see your analytical mind was like, what was the name of that thing that I couldn't remember? I could tell it was driving you crazy, man.
Oh, yeah.
So funny. I go through the same thing, right? Like I have the same thing that happens where I'm like, the hell was it that I know it, it's right there, and it would drive me crazy. So, okay. So we got this. Number 1, recognize now is an even better time to have listings, because you do control the market, and that does generate more leads for you when you have that listing that's there for a little bit and taking the normal time to sell. Number 2 was the ability that you have to be able to actually have the market knowledge, macro, micro, et cetera, and be able to present comparables. Dude, last night I was like finishing up the sales, you know, we're talking about this, the sales mastery workbook, just like, you know, like now I'm having one of those moments where I can't remember, not nutty professor, but the crazy professor, you know, like doing my stuff. And I was going through the pricing portion of the listing presentation going, oh shit, I can't wait to teach this, because this is relevant again.
Oh, no kidding.
The skill of pricing. So good. What about this? You guys are in a market 2015, 16, 17, where you'd have to, like, a listing didn't sell in a week. It would take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Right? What would you guys do to be able to keep the sellers informed, because my belief is right now, that's going to be a pretty major point of
Absolutely.
what we need to do, because the home's
Yep.
not selling. The expectation was there that it would, and now it's sitting. So
Yeah.
what do you recommend there, bud?
Well, once again, like you said, presentation of material and how frequently are you presenting it? So, we would send out reports every Tuesday of what happened over the weekend with the showings and the feedback, and then also send out MLS information, Zillow information, how many people are seeing it, liking it, maybe says the house is priced too high. So really that feedback that you're giving the seller is going to be extremely important, and having a customizable report that is easy. If you're carrying a lot of listings like we had not inside sales, virtual assistants that would work on those. And that's why they went out Tuesday, because they couldn't get them all done in a Monday, right? So Monday was when they were forming them. And then by end of day Tuesday, that's when we would have them ready to go out. So staying in constant communication and being able to present the material that you have in a visible fashion, right? With graphs and other things that some of the websites provide you. It's, copy and paste, and then have it in a format.
Would those be, yeah,
suitable.
like email them out, follow up
Yep.
with a phone call? Was that like the historic process? that you
Exactly.
guys followed?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, you're not a doomsdayer, but you're not also, the cherry on top type person. It's just being realistic with your sellers.
What is
of where
that? What
the
does that
market
dialogue?
is.
What does that dialogue sound like? Like what would you guys? You're a script guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you like me, are crazy professor that loves to be able to actually
Yeah.
bring the scripts and dialogues. You did it for the ISAs on your team, and you think, what
What
would
I
you?
always loved about
Thursday?
scripts is when you ask people if they had a script, right? No, no, I don't have a script. Well, what is it that you would say, right? Well, I say this, and I say it every time. I'm go, well, that's great. That's what you made up your script, right?
Yeah.
Here's what professionals and people that have studied the market, like you and your neuro-linguistic program and all that stuff, formed into a script. Would you rather use your customizable script or one that's made by professionals, right? So, it's funny that people would do that. But so the script and the follow-up, it just depends, right, on what the property is and what type of activity we're having on the property. More than likely, it's just reviewing the email that goes out, asking if they have any questions about it. If it's an opportune time to where we've had it on the market for a certain amount of time, then it's a discussion on if they would like to see a price reduction to attract more buyers at this point. Sometimes that's the conversation you have on the listing, right? When pricing the property correctly. And many sellers may want to overprice it. So what do you do when seller wants to overprice it? Well, I found what was best is if they're really unrealistic and they're going with the number that you don't like, is you write it into the listing agreement of, here's what we're listing at today. Now I'm going to do everything in our marketing program. This is what it is. And in 2 weeks, if we've had, a certain amount of showings and the house hasn't sold, we have a price reduction already set in the listing, in the listing agreement.
So smart.
And another one. So we would do it over the course of, a month or two, depending on the market. But if they're really wanting an overprice, I understand that. We're going to do the best we can to sell your house at that price. And here's what we're doing, bing, bing, and bing. And if it doesn't sell by the 17th of July, we're going to reduce it by $10,000, and we're just going to write that into the listing agreement right now. Brilliant. So it's a set expectation, because so many times we've taught that, and agents will talk about it and say it at the listing table, right? Or at the listing presentation or consultation. And the sellers don't remember, or they act like they don't remember. And you're 2 weeks down and they won't reduce the price because they still want to sell it
versus you signed this, you agreed to it. By the way, for everyone who's listening right now that has gotten in the business in 2020, 2021, or 2022, a price reduction is where you have to reduce the price of a property, right? In order to be able to get it sold, right? Yeah. So, okay.
Brilliant. Totally.
It feels like I feel like newer agents to the market. It's like me trying to tell my kids about a rotary phone. They're like, "Well, where do you press, Dad?" I'm like, "No, you turn."
Wait. And there's a cord.
There's a cord. What is that cord for? Is that to charge it?
That's just so you don't lose the handle.
Yeah. No. So I love that. I think that's a brilliant strategy, and one that people need to use, because you're right. Sellers won't remember, and you go back and you remember that conversation. And I mean, most people can't remember what they ate for lunch last Tuesday, let alone what happened on a listing presentation that was 3 weeks ago. So brilliant. Okay, let's look at one last thing. You've created all these systems. because that's really what you did. You went in from the recruiting standpoint, you created a system to be able to recruit and be able to bring people on and to be able to have them be a good fit for the culture. You did it on the listing side of the business to be able to actually have the, here's the process that we use both in the acquisition of a listing and in addition to that on the management of the listing. You did it with the acquisition of wholesale, title, ISA, etc. Now, ask you a pointed question. Do you think an agent, and please like answer this the way you truly believe in your heart. Do you think an agent can get by in the next 24 to 36 months relying exclusively on marketing and advertising?
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah. I mean, for me, I never considered myself an operations person. So when you say the systems and all, it really is what we worked on and what I worked on. The reason I don't consider myself that is I guess I wasn't good at the documentation of it. I always had to have somebody else like, okay, here's what I did. Can you please document this for me? Because
which is brilliant.
I know it all and everything.
Brilliant.
Right? Yeah.
You said that at the beginning of this entire interview. You said, hey,
yeah.
Being able to identify what you can do and what you can't do and surrounding yourself with those to fill the gap. You did exactly what
I always like to just be that person that's vulnerable and understand other people need to be that way too, because you're not going to be good at everything. And I realized that, but man, if you put somebody behind me that's documenting the process, it's going to be bulletproof. Right. So that's always what I love. Okay. So getting back to your question, advertising and marketing, no, right? Because if you're just relying on that, it'd be like relying on a high I to run your business.
What does that mean for those people that don't understand?
I could say that, right? So being very talkative and persuasive, right? So you're out there, but then who's going to do all the follow-up and the closing, working on the script work, the systems, the processes, the transaction coordination. It's like running into somebody and working with them for the first time in coaching, right? Making sure you have the foundation set. Like and if you're building a house, if you don't have the foundation set, then all of that other fluff work is going to bring in leads that you're not going to close possibly, or you're going to be wasting money, right? Totally. So you're wasting all this money to bring in leads that you don't have a system or process to close.
Yeah.
So,
love it.
And I think with marketing and advertising, it's going to be important right now with listings because it's going to be a much easier and cheaper way to generate leads, right? Yeah. I mean, how much does it cost you to do an open house? Right?
Nothing except for your time and maybe some.
It's that whole sweat equity versus check equity, right? You're going to be able to generate leads a lot easier now off of that sweat equity versus just paying for online leads because you will have the listing and you can generate leads off of
all this conversation, bro, about people going, where am I going to find the listings? Remember, I mean, look, you and I have been in coaching and doing this for like years. People, the last couple of years, where are the listings, man? And leaning so heavily into our past clients and sphere. Well, now we're gonna have expireds. Now for sale by owners. Now, still having your base of your past clients and sphere. Now that on our, I mean, there's so much more.
Funny you said that because my conversation just the other day with my client who did really well with expireds in the past. We're now clearing off and dusting off the cobwebs and bringing that process
in advance of November, December, when we're going to see the 6-month contracts come to fruition of the people that listed in March and April and May. It reminds me, bro, of that wonderful movie, Poltergeist 2. Remember she said, they're here. Remember that movie? But then that little freaky little girl, right? And now the second movie was, they're
Give me nightmares.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So they'll be here and back. Yep.
They'll be here, they'll be back, and someone's going to grab them. And it should be, our viewers and people that are listening to this right now. Well, but
think ahead. Yeah. Think ahead and start thinking about that now.
Yeah. Couple of just general questions I want to ask that I want to ask everyone on our time that we have together. Do you have a morning ritual? And quickly, if so, what is it?
So my morning ritual really is getting up early in the morning and focusing in on some exercise. It's exercise and mainly meditation. So those are the two things I focus in on. I found that meditation has really helped me be funny word, grounded, right? Like it's just like yoga or anything. So that meditation and then exercise and making sure that I'm getting up at the same time every day. Those really are the three things that I focus in on and having something nutritious to eat.
Beautiful. Number one book that you'd recommend for everyone to be listening to or reading right now? Is that funny? Like book to reading?
It's funny because I do a little bit of all three because I'll listen to it, I'll read it, and a lot of times I will get the outline or get abstract or some sort of summary of it. Totally. The one I love is The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham.
I have not read that.
It's fantastic. He's really good on audio. I don't know why, but he sounds like a Southern football coach.
Great.
And I just am attracted to his voice, I guess, and then everything in it he puts into a bumper sticker. So he'll shorten them into abbreviations of here it is on a bumper sticker.
That's brilliant.
And they're great. Yeah, he's fantastic. I love that guy.
Amazing. One last thing that you'd want to leave everyone with that you would say, like if you were like, hey, they're walking away, you've just spent time with them and you want to tell them this one thing, remember this, what would they remember this be?
This may be cheesy, but it took me a long time to understand why to have a coach. So if you don't have a coach or you don't have a coach that you like, get a coach and find one that you can gravitate towards. Because if I would have had a coach, like I said, I've been doing this 21 years. I mean, I would have been 5 to 10 years accelerated in this industry versus trying to figure it all out on my own and making a lot of mistakes. George was just my previous partner, but before that, I think I had 4 or 5, right? So I did it wrong for a long time, right? And so if I would have had better direction and a coach that I could have a sounding board
Coach,
off
mentor,
of,
guide, whatever, right? Just some, you know.
exactly. Well, I had a mentor, but I chose the wrong mentor at a young age. So
Okay.
be careful on the mentors you choose. Yeah.
Super smart. I love that, man. Yeah. There's someone that's produced what you want and they're ahead of you on that.
Oh my
I
goodness.
find them.
Listen, yes. Be humble enough to listen and understand you don't know it all.
I love that, man. That
Man.
right there. That's
That's why I really am excited about being with you and Shep Black and Beard, because you three are just geniuses in the industry and people that everyone should learn from, listen to, and implement what you're teaching and coaching on.
And you know what's well, I appreciate that. And I'm sure John and Dan do too, and will when they watch this. We all have our different superpower. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's exactly
yep.
what like you and Lawton and and your organization, and just like to the point that you said at the very beginning, knowing your lane, staying in it, and driving as fast as you can when you're in the lane, man. Makes
Yeah.
Well, brother,
Yeah.
I really appreciate Justin, us getting the chance to be able to do this.
Yeah,
Having
it's
known
fun.
you for a
Thank you.
decade, man. Like, and I'm proud to be partnered with you, and and for you to be part of this organization, the ecosystem. So
Yeah, I'm excited to
thank
see
you.
where it goes. You guys are doing a great job so far. I mean, it's just been fantastic.
Yeah, it's got up is where our
Yeah.
goal is go up.
Onward and
right?
upward.
Onward and
Exactly.
upward. All right, brother. Well, thank you very much. Oh, if they want to get a hold of you, Instagram handle, how do they do that?
Yeah, so Instagram's Justin Baker, and we just got our emails. So Justin at Agent Academy.
Great.
That's probably the best way. Justin at agentacademy.com.
Okay, cool, man. Awesome, brother.
Yeah,
Hey,
sweet.
right, okay, appreciate you.
Take care, pipes.
For those of you watching,
Bye,
give us
guys.
some comments, give us some
Thank you.
likes. Let us know how you enjoyed this and what your major takeaway was. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Sweet.